make sure that your phone is muted?
Yes, phone is muted, pagers are turned off, and you are ready to attend the event.
Can't get a SIG on my beeper.
I mean, are doctors even still using pagers anymore, or is that dead tech completely now?
You know, I feel like
I think it's dead.
I think there actually is some kind of like in-house technology that doctors still use. I guess I could probably actually ask some of the folks I know in the field that are serving this great country and keeping us all healthy.
Yeah. I mean, always remember growing up having a friend whose parents were both doctors and their pagers going off quite a bit while they were on call. But yeah, I feel like that's a piece of technology that, since because of the cell phone, is just done.
I guess we might actually, before we get too far ahead of ourselves again, as Joe and I like to do on this program, welcome to week 2. We are continuing some of our discussion here centered around Ready Player One, the Ernest Cline 2011 novel adapted into a 2018 film. Today, we're actually going to be looking at a little bit different focus that we've alluded to a little bit in some of the other episodes here. Mainly being, well, 2 things. One, we're going to talk a little bit about how the year 2000 was kind of this big topic for a lot of us. If you were a 90s kid and you remember those years, Y2K was nuts, Joe. It was nuts.
Very.
Yeah. Like we were ready for, like zombies to just break out, or, Godzilla to appear.
Was going to crumble because all of the computers would assume we switched to the year 00, and they'd have no idea what to do. Planes would fall out of the sky. All the tax systems and death records that are kept digitally would just assume that, hey, all the dead people are alive again, and we've hit like a weird robotic zombie apocalypse, is what we assumed would happen in the year 2000.
And then later we would amend it to say sexy robots, sexy zombies.
Oh,
yeah. Because just like every Halloween costume you've ever seen since the early 2000s, everything got sexy.
Oh, everything got sexy.
Yeah. Got to be sexy. Garlic bread, always sexy. Garlic bread. So that didn't have to get sexier, but no. The Halloween costumes, yep, had to get sexy.
Got sexy. All right. And I believe the second part, we're going to talk of, I think, like modern attempts or actual attempts at something more Oasis-like. So something similar to what we have in Ready Player One of what the main characters are going through. However, I mean, obviously not quite there. Otherwise, I'm assuming that's where we'd all be right now, just plugged in and ignoring any and all responsibility that we have coming our way.
Wait, we needed an Oasis to do that?
I mean, we didn't. We don't. We definitely don't need that.
Actually, you know what? I am very, very much prepared to wade into that onion patch because I've used the social MMO quite a bit throughout my life. So,
all right, which that's something you definitely did a lot more than I did. I definitely remember like taking a solid crack at PlayStation Home and like making myself into like what I was actually wearing that day. Like jeans, black t-shirt with a white long shirt underneath it, and be like, this is gonna be cool. And then I lasted roughly 5 minutes. I'm like, you know what? I could just do this in real life with my friends that I have. And I left it. I never came back to PlayStation Home.
What's really funny for me, Joe, the journey began long before that. And I think it's actually funny that we talk about the year 2000 jokingly here as a side topic. But I actually started playing my first social MMO right around the late 90s.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Which one was that? I'm trying to think of any of them that were like, because like the late 90s, I mean, was Friendster even a thing in the late 90s?
No, this is something. This is something that I only know of maybe 4 or 5 people who are even aware of this social MMO. So what was called is Traveler. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know about it because it was a very small thing, right? Like this was like 99, 2000, and actually it may have been 98. Actually, I think 98 is when it first came out.
Okay.
But really, what you were on this traveler platform, you were basically a floating head, and you could be like a lion, you could be a dog, you could be, weird looking aliens, you could be, standard human looking thing.
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Anything the traveler chooses, right?
Yeah, whatever form you choose. So long as it's one of the preloaded heads that you can float around with.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is got to be some limitation. Otherwise, come on.
Yeah. Well, but remember, this is 98, right? This is 99. Like this is something that's pretty cool because I had a mic that was far shittier than the one we're talking through today. This was a very, very awful mic, but you know what? We thought it was high tech. We thought it was great for the time. And yeah, you could go to these like preloaded zones, float your little head around, talk to people, and it was pretty cool. Like I think the part of it that I thought was the funniest was when you're traveling between these like little zones that you could go to. Like the loading screen would be you like going through a tunnel and like zooming around. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, so like you felt like you were immersed, Joe.
I think I remember you actually talking about this before in casual conversation. Back when Snowrunt was available to be shiny in Pokemon Go, because its evolved form, didn't you say like looked like the floating head you had made?
This is very true.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, when Snowrunt evolves, it basically becomes this like giant floating cat head hybrid, right?
Gale, I believe, or Gaily?
Glalie.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, which I always just assumed was like cat and hockey mask combined. Let's sign me up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always had very fond memories of this because I would always pick the cat in Traveler, and then I would customize it to look similar to what the shiny Glalie would be. So it was ironic that like I hadn't played a minute of Pokemon back then, but yeah, my little avatar was colored and stylized to look like friggin' Glalie, shiny Glalie.
Yeah, so, which I mean, at that time, that Pokemon didn't even exist because that was like, I think, a Generation 3 Pokemon. So look at you predicting the future.
And you know what? That's a good point we kind of travel to here, no pun intended, is predicting the future. I have a story from a civil engineer named John Elfrith Watkins Jr. Have you ever heard of this poor bastard?
John Elfrith Watkins Jr. I have not. No.
Okay. So he ended up writing an article called What May Happen in the Next 100 Years. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but probably not because it appeared in December 1900 issue of Ladies' Home Journal.
Yeah, don't read that periodical, believe it or not. I'm not in the demographic it seeks.
Especially not 1900s women, early 1900s women. Yeah, so he actually made some predictions though about the year 2000. So this is kind of where we're sitting right now.
In the distant future, the year 2000.
Yes. Yes, it is the distant future, the year 2000.
The world is quite different ever since the late robotic uprising of the late 1990s.
Affirmative. Watkins would predict that cars would be cheaper than horses.
Ooh.
Hot and cold air would be pumped into houses. Ooh. And cameras would allow us to see events on the other side of the world.
He got all of those things right.
Yeah, the only things he didn't quite get right though was that we would have super strong humans who trained at free public gyms, topically applied drugs, once again playing into this like super strong human thing, and total eradication of flies and mosquitoes.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't do that last one. I feel like we could have done that. We just don't. We choose not to. I feel like it's like that's like the backwards Jurassic Park. Like we definitely could have achieved that biologically, but we're like, nah, ethics and stuff. But like, do we really need them for flies and mosquitoes? Nah, we don't.
It definitely feels like it's on par with like that could have, would have, and should have type of thing. I will say this though. I mean, as far as like the super strong humans thing, he may not have been that far off because, I mean, we do have like 24/7 pop-up gyms that you can go to.
This is true.
Yeah, and now we've got like readily available meal services, and if you want to get svelte, just hop on Instagram and watch how all these dudes do it. I mean,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
It's there. Yeah, it's kind of there. I don't know. Like, try to think of like just crazy things that we used to really think. I feel like I just like a lot of the stuff I remember growing up seeing for predictions for the year 2000, that we always like would just round back to Art Deco everything.
Yeah.
So that will be the style of the future. And that there is so many things just had to do with us like living in the sky. Like that was going to be the future. That basically you'd have like these air like ships or blimps or these basically these massive civilizations just living in the sky. And I don't know why that would be a thing that you'd even want. Like I feel like that's a horrible idea of something to even want in the year 2000 or any time. Because like all of it was like floating up there. All you need is like one part to fail or some guy to choose not to come into work one day, and then your whole city comes crashing down.
Well, as you mentioned, Art Deco, though, in its origins, the time period that the Romanticism attached to that stuff came from, the taking flight and aerial technologies were all the rage back in like the 20s, 30s, and 40s as we discovered, how we could do it.
That is true.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking back at the original Eiffel Tower, or not Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building, its original purpose was to basically be a docking station for a blimp.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, we've got some people who are obsessed with like the Rocketeer era, of flight and what it can do for humanity. I mean, I don't think I could ever trust a blimp. Just because, like you mentioned, if you've got one hole leaking in that thing, I mean, no, the humanity is not far off in that conversation. Not to make light of the people who lost their lives on that fateful day. We're not laughing at that.
Oh no, poor Hindenburg. No, no, not at all. But other than that, some more playful things that's much nicer is that the Boston Globe once predicted in the early 1900s that baseball may be played at night in the distant future.
Oh my!
I know.
That was bold. That was
very bold. Like who would have thought that you could possibly enjoy a good ball game after the sun's gone down? No, the world we live in.
God, the simplicity of
the
eras we did not live in.
No, and I feel like every prediction for like education was always leaning towards like basically your kid like just plugging their head into something or putting on a helmet, and then the knowledge just gets absorbed into their brain, making my job completely irrelevant. Like you just need way easier. Like you just need an IT guy at that point. Like, oh yeah, your education osmosis helmet has got the check engine light on. I can fix that, and that's all you need.
I know we just brought it up passively here, but I mean, the Hindenburg did really help people begin to shape their predictions right around the 50s, right? Like we've drifted away from the blimp, the Zeppelin, right? And actually, I think even Popular Mechanics released like miracles that we'll see in the next 50 years during this time period, where they actually shifted that logic towards, the supersonic jet or massive airships in the skies. We're not talking like like Avengers level of
no, not the helicarrier.
But yeah, fast ships and things like that. And yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of funny how much that event impacted the predictions and where people wanted to go with it, because I mean, obviously that was a huge event for the world back then.
Completely. And I think at that point in time, you also start to have people thinking of like, we have to find safer means of transportation for longer distances. And one that actually comes up in one of our favorite animated things we've ever talked about in the show, Futurama, is pneumatic tubes for transportation. Was another one that I think it was have it here in another Boston Globe. They had someone else talking about it. But yeah, they assumed that you would have basically everything being transported by the pneumatic tube. And my question with that is, I understand how like a person walks into the tube and then they get sucked up and they transport, but how do we slow them down successfully? I feel like that's the damning part of the whole thing.
And how do you go in head first but end up on your feet?
Yep. How do you do that switch? Is there like a light that comes on, like a series like you need to now roll, do a barrel roll? Other than, of course, there has to be like a limit to how fast those things can work, because it's gonna be like, pushing a jet at supersonic flight. Your blood's gonna be forced to a different part of your body.
Oh yeah.
And in this case, like you're preventing blood from getting to your brain. Like that's going to kill you. Like,
Oh, yeah.
This is a terrible idea.
Yeah, G-force isn't just the name of a TV station, folks. It is a real thing that impacts the human body.
Who would have thought? Yeah.
The prediction that I remember reading about from like the 50s and 60s era that actually made sense to me was the idea of like a self-cleaning house that pretty much replaced the idea of like hand washing dishes and stuff like that, and instead replacing everything with synthetics. So like your home furnishings, they're all synthetic. Your house cleans itself. I mean, this was
nifty.
This was years before the spork, Joe. Right? The only thing that I remember from this Popular Mechanics article that I saw, this is years ago, they did somehow think we'd be wearing rayon underpants, and it would convert into candy.
Huh. For a second there, I was a little upset that we didn't have that one, but now I'm totally fine with it after that last part.
Is it bringing back a little bit too much reality of what the replicator powers itself on?
Yep. It's like, well, it needs carbon from somewhere, folks.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, too real.
I mean, if I was eating candy and somebody told me, "Hey, that's made from poop and rayon," I'd slowly chew for a moment, and then I'd probably just continue my bite. But
probably. But at the same time, if someone would have told me that's where Tootsie Rolls come from, I'd probably still believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing against Tootsie Rolls, but they do look like turds, a little bit.
And that's no imagination.
None at all. Like, someone drops one of those in a pool, everyone's assuming it's poop. Just like a payday.
I mean, everybody who's ever been on a sports team that has to take showers has usually found a candy bar or something dropped in the shower so that everyone can try to figure out, what am I looking at? Can I eat that? Nope. Usually not the eating part, but
nope. And who wants to get close enough to do the smell test on this one?
Is that a peanut? Is that nougat? That looks like some nougat.
Well, it's definitely a nut. However,
am I sensing some coconut here?
Ooh.
I mentioned that specifically because that actually happened in several locker rooms that I was a part of, and I was not the person that started the joke. Thank you for those of you who are like, "Oh yeah, that was Mark doing a shit joke." Not this time.
Not this time. Oh no. No.
Well, if you remember a former president, Harry Truman, who's no longer with us.
Yeah, God rest his soul. Gone too soon.
He actually had some of his predictions of his own, which, you know what, I could read this out. He didn't speak in a Pan Atlantic, but I could try. if you want to hear this, we'll just do a brief impression of it. But here's what Harry Truman said. International affairs, there'll be world peace. The atom will be under international control. The United Nations will be a growing concern and will have forces to preserve international law and order. World commerce will be regulated under the new International Trade Organization. Other nations will share America's prosperity through an expanded Point 4 program of technical assistance to underdeveloped countries. Communism will be suppressed, not by force of arms, but by an appeal to the minds and hearts of man.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah. I don't think I could ever look at the United Nations quite as a threat to humanity. but but yeah, I mean, just like any party, you got to be careful about who you invite over, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't want somebody peeing on your couch and then just take it off.
No. Who does that?
I mean, I'm not going to admit to it.
No, not gonna point fingers, name names, anything like that, or definitely not admit to it. Or if someone just comes over to your house, you think he's a good friend of yours because you've hung out before, and then he just spits in your living room, and he's like, "Hey, I thought you guys had a spitting rule," and it's like, "We do, Aaron. It's that you don't spit in the house. That's how it works. That's everyone's spitting rule."
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Robert Downey Jr.'s solo album. Did you ever hear about this that he wrote?
No, I had no idea he did any music work.
Oh, he did, and his album was called The Futurist.
Ooh.
Honestly, it was also a magazine in the late 60s. So, but actually, before we get away from it, though, in the Captain America Civil War movie, Hawkeye actually calls him that when he joins them in the prison out in the ocean. As he's walking in, he claps and he goes, "There he is, ladies and gentlemen, the futurist." And I'm like that one guy in the audience, like in Napoleon Dynamite when they're doing the talent show, and he's like sitting there just like going, "Yeah," like jamming out. When they said the futurist, I was like, I was the only person in the theater like going, "Oh, it's hilarious." Like, looking around, and I'm like, "Oh,
no one knows about this."
Okay. Well, then we'll just move on.
Yep, let's call it a day.
Well, tell you what, the Futurist published Vice President Hubert Humphrey's predictions for the next 20 years. And if you want to peek into the imagination of our president in the late 70s, or the vice president, I should say.
Okay.
I'm thinking of what kind of voice we'll use for this. Maybe we'll just do generic older Caucasian male.
I think that works for you. Yeah, that should be fine.
All right, so here's what he wrote in this magazine. The virtual elimination of bacterial and viral diseases, the correction of hereditary defects through the modification of genetic chemistry, the stepping up of our food supply through large-scale ocean farming and fabrication of synthetic proteins, control of the weather, at least on a regional scale. In space, the landing of men on Mars and the establishment of a permanent unmanned research station on that planet. The creation in the laboratory of primitive forms of artificial life. This can indeed be an age of miracles. It will be your age.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I don't know if this is like knowing the answers to the test or something, but as we move along, like people are like getting closer to where it's like, oh my God, these are actually becoming true.
Yeah.
now, not by the year 2000 by any means.
No.
But I mean, right off the top of my head, like our vice president in 1967, the dude literally called the shot for like Impossible Meats and Beyond Burgers. And like he was already thinking of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I know, like in college, ever having a professor who was doing copy editing, he talked about how eventually he had a coworker in the newspaper industry, and how eventually there would not be printed newspapers anymore, and that instead the newspapers would just sell you basically a tiny screen, and you just get your news delivered to the screen. And this was this is well before any tablet or touchscreen had popped up, and he was kind of right, except for the fact that the tablets won't be coming from the newspapers themselves. But yeah, kind of there.
I mean, at the time, somebody probably like was so offended by the prediction that they puked in a trash can or something.
Oh, the print is absolute. We can't Yeah, the world without newspapers would be a scary place. It's like, no, I think it's just scary because you'd be out of a job. And that is, unemployment is a scary, scary aspect. But yeah, no.
I can see someone fainting, you know, where they put the back of their hand to their forehead and just fall over.
Just, oh.
Oh, la gasp. And, yeah. I think the prediction that I most remembered, and I'm hopefully remembering this correctly, because I'm pretty sure there was a book called, it was like either the Age of Intelligent Machines or Age of Intelligent Machines.
Yep.
And I remember in this book we had things like, it was like automated customer service calls, speech to text, you know, like translating telephones. I think they even called their shot on exoskeletons. And I think self-driving cars, that was the other part.
Okay.
And that was like in the early 90s. Or
yeah,
maybe even 90s.
2 out of 4 isn't bad. It's not passing, but it's not bad.
Well, who doesn't want exoskeletons?
Yeah, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah. Yeah, so long as you don't have like a Doc Ock scenario where like you have an inhibitor chip that gets destroyed and you're you know, you're just stuck fighting with, you know, multiple personality syndrome. Yeah, I think I could live in that reality for a little bit.
Yeah, I could go there.
But you know, I think that's where it kind of comes across for me is that the stuff that we do rely on right now, you know, we did catch up to over that, you know, roughly 40-50 year period. Once folks were kind of predicting the year 2000, calling their shots Babe Ruth style, as we like to reference quite a bit here.
Oh yeah, they're pointing their bats straight to the future.
There it is, Joe, with the Back to the Future. Yeah. That's your kids, Monty. It's like, no, my kids assholes or something? Like, yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh my god, I just had a terrible flashback to the to that Family Guy, like making fun of that moment. Do you remember that?
No, it's not shaking loose for me.
Oh, it's horrible. It turns out Doc is just a racist.
If anything, it just tells you where Family Guy used to be in terms of its humor, as opposed to, you know, where they kind of went with it. Because I mean, it was definitely shock humor before it got canceled. Yeah.
Yep. Canceled, then revived, and it hasn't. Is it still? It's still going, isn't it?
Yeah, it's still going.
It's still going. I haven't watched it in years, but it's still going.
Yeah, it's out there. So speaking of what's still out there, though, because we kind of talked about social MMOs for about 5 seconds, and now we're here.
Yes.
So, Joe, what do you remember of me telling you about their virtual world?
Well, I do remember you showing me the home you had made, and how Virtual Mark has made out for a very, very nice life for himself, as well as a small community that is around Virtual Mark. And I believe you weren't bragging, but you definitely were showing off some gear and stuff that you were able to get back when this was like fairly new, and these are things you can't get anymore, like this really cool blimp you can go around in and go to other people's places, and you just show up in a blimp to someone's party.
Speaking of that good old blimp technology.
Yeah, I mean, this is like their equivalent of like opening up your wallet and a Magnum condom falls out.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, so for folks who have never heard about their virtual world, and Joe's he's not wrong in this, that I did build a home for myself there, and I spent some time in it, which, going back to what you mentioned, man, I was still like going out and hanging out with my friends and doing things like in public, but I would come home and play a social MMO. It was the weirdest thing ever. So this game actually came out, and I mentioned this actually later on this week with our conversation with the wonderful Seamus Byrne.
Yes, good old Seamus.
Yeah, like it was a nice little escape, because kind of in the vein of what we've talked about with trying to predict the future, it almost, the people who created this game almost had that spirit in mind, because if you wanted to basically, if you saw something in the game and you want to go fly up to it and check it out, You just strap on a jetpack and be flying up there. You know, if you want to go out into space, boom, guess what? You press the button long enough, you will get to space.
You're in space. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was, you know, it was a nice little time sink. It was initially a game that was created to help the military, you know, communicate with each other globally. And they abandoned the project, and then this company continued to develop it for the consumer market. And yeah, I mean, so for me, when we start to connect this stuff to the idea of an oasis, you know, there's plenty of fun things you can do in a virtual world like this, like Second Life, like Club Penguin, for those of you who remember Club Penguin, that children and adults alike all loved. Yeah, there's definitely value in the communication of a virtual world, of, you know, of an oasis style of organization. But I think the majority of us, just kind of like what's evidenced here in the pandemic, we do need the in-person, you know, conversation, the touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't exist virtually because we've tried a lot. We've struggled a lot. I mean, you know better than I do. Hell, you got to teach classes over that shit.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. Wasn't a good time. Yeah, definitely having the having the actual human contact is absolutely needed for what I do, and not professionally, just like personally. Like, it sucks not having people around.
Yeah. I mean, you can still make connections in a virtual world. You know, I think that the movie, the book, for Ready Player One, I think they actually do manage to get that part out pretty well. But yeah, I guess without actually being able to meet someone in public, it's not something that I think is sustainable long term, unfortunately.
No, because like I even think of like the few MMO things that I have done, I typically did it with my friends that I knew. Like, we'd go online, we'd game, we'd have a good time online, and then we'd meet up in real life and, you know, talk about all the fun stuff we did online. But yeah, like, it just really helps when you have someone physically there to talk to. Which just also just made me think of that Make Love Not Warcraft episode of South Park, where where Randy tries telling Stan he needs to go outside and do things with his friends. And like Stan just rips into him saying like, I'm earning XP with my friends using TeamSpeak over like names like, there are thousands of players. I am meeting people, Dad. It's like, it's true, but it also not the same. Not the same, Stan.
It really isn't the same, unfortunately. You know, I think what the problem is here with like a social MMO, do we have, you know, machinery, or do we have technology that could allow you to technically shake someone's hand and feel their grip through the internet?
Oh,
yes, we do. The technology is there to do that, but it's not affordable. It's not practical at all. And I really have concerns over what you would do with that technology in the wrong hands. Or the right hands.
Or the right hands. Like, you're either getting a forced choke or a happy ending, one of the two.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how brave you are.
Oh God.
but that's the truth of it, though. Like, the limitations of what we've seen develop in the last 30 years, right? Because I would say the social MMO, while it was always a part of an internet powered world, it didn't get significant investment until, you know, right around late 90s, early 2000s, right? And we've remained static in that environment, right? I don't really think we've gone much further than the avatar that can, you know, be dressed up and dolled up, and you know, you have virtual properties you can deck out and do things with, but it will never be able to, you know, at least currently, it just can't mimic the human interaction.
Not even close. No.
But yeah, you know, I think when we look at wrapping this up, as we like to say, because we've got some pretty damn fun conversation about the technology where it could go with our friend Seamus, as we mentioned. But Joe, how about you make your prediction for the year 2000 as if you were 1990s Joe?
Oh.
I want to hear that prediction.
All right. So here's what I think will happen in the year 2000. All sidewalks will be powered by the sun. And will be like those sidewalks at the airport that are treadmill things, the fast walk things. That's everything. That's everywhere. All over the place. Because Joe in the 1990s was definitely a fat kid who didn't want to walk anywhere.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and I think the state of Wisconsin would absolutely put money into that technology.
And how about young Mark? Where would Mark think where would be in the year 2000? As though you were still in 1990s, Mark.
Okay, so young Mark also was very rotund and very food forward, food first. My thoughts were very Demolition Man in nature, and then I thought that fast food would actually be whittled down to very few competitors by the year 2000. I was actually telling friends of mine that I thought Hardee's was really going to take off / Carl's Jr. And I felt ahead of the curve in terms of idiocracy from that standpoint. I obviously did not call the player in that one. But I thought for sure that we would start to see more things condensing, from that standpoint. Despite the fact that, like, when we were kids, we just saw like the telephone companies get split up, right? Because of the whole monopoly thing. So I was actually thinking that, yeah, fast food would whittle down into like less competition and
just it's fast food tonight, and that's all you have.
Yeah, it's fast food. I really thought that was likely to happen because we were getting more health conscious too. Like we were starting to see, the Snackwell's fat-free shit. we saw potato chips that would grease the chute, and give you the instant runs. So 90s Mark was thinking like, yeah, I got this figured out, except for actually losing the weight. But but either way, that's where I thought we would be. I thought we would be at like maybe 2 or 3 like worldwide competitors, like the Taco Bell of Demolition Man, and that it would just be yeah. But clearly I was very, very wrong in that standpoint.
Our future of sidewalks that move us to the fast food restaurant of our choice. I mean, I'm fine living that world one day, Mark.
I guess you don't need joints anymore when things can move for you. just lay down on that thing. You'll get there eventually.
If you can get to the treadmill, that's literally all the motion you need.
Once again, Wisconsin stamp of approval. The people here would love it.